Hello, Gold Derby. I'm Gold Derby Senior Editor Daniel Montgomery, and I'm here with our writer Tony Ruiz, who has written about the Daytime Emmy reels for us for Gold Derby, and we have discussed all of the seven soap opera acting categories, all seven of those, in previous slugfests, and now we are going to talk about the big one, which is Best Drama Series. And first, we have, I should say that as a caveat, we have seen all of the reels submitted for the acting categories as they were seen by the Emmy judges, but the TV Academy did not release the drama series submissions onto YouTube the way they did with those other acting categories, so we have not seen these the way that the voters have seen these. In my case, I have not seen them at all, except for what I have seen from other submissions, so they sort of match up with some of the acting submissions. So we will do our best to make sense of Best Drama Series for you. And first, I will say the nominees. And boy, was this a hard category to get into, man. The nominees are The Bold and the Beautiful, Days of Our Lives, General Hospital, and The Young and the Restless. They snubbed 0 shows because there are 4 soaps on the air, and they all got nominated for the second year in a row. All 4 soaps were nominated, though the cruel irony is that they decided to leave 1 show out of 1 major category, and that was Days of Our Lives from Best Writing. All other soaps got into drama series, writing, and directing, except for 1 writing nomination that Days of Our Lives is missing. So maybe that's telling, but first of all, let's talk about what these shows submitted one by one. Tell us, Tony, about the Bold and the Beautiful submissions. We have seen a lot of these just from the acting reels, haven't we?
Yeah, and Bold and the Beautiful, each show gets to submit 2 episodes, with the exception of Bold and the Beautiful. As a half-hour show, it gets to submit 4. So it's basically 2 hours worth of episodes. Bold and the Beautiful submitted all episodes in relationship to the Maya transgender storyline, and the first 2 episodes are pretty much what is in Jacob Young's submission, when Maya tells Rick the truth about being transgender, and she expects him to walk out on her, and she doesn't. Also in that episode, the character of Bill Spencer is going to use the tabloids to embarrass and humiliate Maya because she is transgender. The second submission is very prominently featured on the guest performer reels for Obu Babatunde and Anna Maria Horsford. It's Maya and Rick's wedding day, and for the most part, it is that entire scene plus a few scenes afterwards, but it is the confrontation between Maya and her rather inflexible and bigoted father, where he leaves and the mother stays behind, accepting Maya for who she is. And to me, this is the front runner. It's 4 episodes about 1 storyline, and it's very socially relevant right now, and it's not played for tabloid value. It's played very sensitively, and there's a lot of real emotion that is reflected in society about transgender issues, and you get to hear based on the parents some of the issues involving that, and I think it's just a really, really strong set of episodes that they submitted.
Yeah, it's interesting. Bold and Beautiful, when a soap is young, it has taken them sometimes some years to get on Emmy's radar. Port Charles had the same issue. It couldn't get arrested in its first couple of years, although it didn't last very long to eventually become kind of any kind of a force. But Bold and Beautiful was slow to catch on with the Emmy voters, especially in the Best Drama Series race, and then it won 3 in a row. 2009 to 2011, I believe, were those. And it hasn't won since then. But yeah, before I heard about these submissions, learned what they were, I sort of was going with the kind of what everyone was assuming in our prediction center at the time, which both Days of Our Lives won last year and Young and the Restless won last year, so those are on the top this year. which, if you have nothing else to go on, that's as good enough, as good a reason as any. Um, so many pre-nominations. Both those shows had the most pre-nominations, and Bold and Beautiful actually had the least. So that seemed like it might be telling also. But here met these submissions, and these submissions do matter. Upsets have happened because of the submissions, and I agree with you that Bold and Beautiful is probably up front because of these submissions. I remember a couple of years ago, The Young and the Restless won. Days of Our Lives was considered the front runner. That was the year. It had huge acclaim. It had Eileen Davidson driving the whole year as Kristen DeMira, and the episode reels they submitted were full of that. But then Young and the Restless submitted this movie about this child getting hit by a car and dying, and I'm like, nope, that's gonna win, and it won. And General Hospital did the same thing several years ago. It submitted, these big event storylines, and it won for its train wreck. It won for a hotel fire. And this doesn't have those kinds of fireworks in terms of pyrotechnics, but in terms of the topicality, the sensitivity, it feels like an event without feeling like they are throwing, big, Michael Bay explosions at the wall like GH did to win Emmys. And so it really does feel like this is pure soap, but really kind of progressive, forward-thinking soap opera, which soap operas have not been, generally speaking. So yeah, it does seem like this is the strongest bet. So that brings us to General Hospital, which is actually the king of the Daytime Emmys. It's won Best Drama Series 11 times. No other soap has won that many. So I think both of us, we talked about these, have been talking about these submissions. Both of us agree more or less that, General Hospital, if anything is going to upset The Bold and the Beautiful, it's probably going to be General Hospital. So tell us why you think that could be a spoiler.
Well, the first episode that they submitted is mostly what Tony Geary submitted in lead actor. It is the 52nd anniversary episode that reveals everything about Luke Spencer's childhood with his abusive father, and the fact that Luke was responsible for both the deaths of his abusive father and accidentally caused the death of his mother. And we both agree that Geary is certainly in front to win Best Actor, and this certainly feels like a very they use black and white for the flashbacks. It's a very heavy submission, and this is an episode lacks some of the fireworks that literally that GH has won with before. There's no big hostage crisis. There's no shootings. There's no trains. It's just really a good old-fashioned family drama. And so that could certainly make it competitive. The second episode is more along the lines of an event episode. It's what they call their Nutcracker Gala, which had several stories, Nicholas and Jason fighting, Patrick rescuing his wife who's been kidnapped for some time. There's a paternity reveal, there's a broken engagement, and so all the good soapy elements are there. It doesn't really go with the first submission. It's not really thematically related or even topically related. It's completely different in tone. And so maybe they're going for more of the, look at all of the things that we can do on General Hospital sort of thing. So I certainly, I can't say that Bold and Beautiful is a lock to win. I think General Hospital could easily win.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talked about Bold and Beautiful potentially winning Best Writing and Best Drama Series thanks to this storyline. I feel like if they have room anywhere else, they probably would give General Hospital possibly Best Directing. I would assume they would submit Luke's at least the 52nd anniversary episode for directing, because certainly that's it's the showiest directing of the episode, certainly, that we watched for the acting categories. So that seems like a smart move. And you can never rule out General Hospital because it has won 11 times, but it hasn't won since 2012. which isn't that long ago, really. But if there are only like 4 or 5 soaps on the air over the last few years, give or take, if you haven't won in a few years, then it's been a while.
Yeah, yeah. I just think that they have a nice range there. I just feel like Bold and the Beautiful feels more important. And maybe that will help it. Of course, the Emmys love a good big event, something that has a lot of impact and a lot of spectacle to it. They could easily, GH could easily win this.
And the thing that I think, the reason that the spectacles often do win for GH is because, or have in the past, is because it's a good, easy way to do an umbrella storyline. And I think that's one of the real strengths of those kinds of submissions, is that when you have one storyline involving a large chunk of the cast, so like if you put them all in a train and the train crashes, or you hold them all hostage, or if you set their building on fire, and trap them all inside, then you can get one big dramatic arc that incorporates a large chunk of your cast. And umbrella storylines are one of the best things that soap operas can do, is tell one big overarching story that encapsulates a lot of people. And the irony is that probably benefits Bold and the Beautiful more than it does GH, because the Maya storyline did involve so many other cast members. As we saw, 4 actors were nominated directly for this storyline, and then Ashlyn Pierce, and Younger Actress, is sort of tangentially connected to this storyline. So there's no one who isn't really, who this didn't really touch. So that feels like a really, really strong, strong factor for the Bold and the Beautiful this year, which ironically leaves, in third or fourth place, however one would rank these, the 2 shows that tied for the award last year, Days of Our Lives and The Young and the Restless. And let's start with The Young and the Restless. That is actually catching up to General Hospital. The last 2 years, it won Best Drama Series. In 2014, it won by itself. And in 2015, it shared it with Days of Our Lives, which brings its total to 9. So it's 2 away from General Hospital. If it wins this year, that puts us into double digits, and they're just 1 award apart. So what did The Young and the Restless submit?
They submitted consecutive episodes, all dealing with the fallout of the reveal that Adam Newman, who is played by Justin Hartley in the lead actor category, that he is actually alive after many people have thought he was dead, and he's been posing as this other character named Gabriel. And it is very much, you talk about an umbrella storyline. This is an umbrella storyline. This is the storyline that connects a lot of different actors on the show, that certain people knew that Adam was pretending to be somebody else all the time. And then the second episode is a big confrontation between Eric Braeden as Victor and Justin Hartley, where they're having their big reunion, which is not a pleasant reunion, because those 2 characters are always at odds with each other. And there's also kind of this, you mentioned the whole thing about the car hitting the young girl and killing her. Well, Justin Hartley's character is the one that drove that car, and there's several callbacks in these 2 episodes to the fact that Adam has accidentally killed this young girl. And so I think the problem here is that it doesn't feel like a very there's not a lot of, it seems like a typical soap opera reveal. It's like, oh, hey, guess what? I'm actually this character and have been this character the whole time. It doesn't have the impact that GH's first reel has, or either or 4 of the Bold and the Beautiful submissions.
Yeah, the stakes don't sound like they're as high on this one. As you were describing these storylines to me earlier, and I'm biased now, because like I haven't kept up with these storylines in real time. And so I'm going off of a lot of what I've seen. I've seen a lot of GH's submission, thanks to Anthony Geary in Best Actor. I've seen a lot of the Bold and Beautiful, thanks to those actors. The only taste of this that I've gotten is, Justin Hartley's submission, which takes place before the episodes that were submitted for Best Drama Series for Young and the Restless, and Justin Hartley's submission was kind of underwhelming. So I'm sort of bringing my biases of that into this. It just doesn't sound like, as you said, like it's not a in terms of soap operas, in terms of storyline reveals, it's not groundbreaking kind of twist. It's just sort of like, a day in the life of a soap opera is like, oh, I was secretly dead or I was secretly alive and I had plastic surgery to change my face, which I think has happened a couple times. I can't remember if I just watched that on TV or if there was another reel like that. I can't remember.
Who knows?
It's so confusing. I really wish that when they recast roles, they would just never do that. Like, never do the whole, I had plastic surgery and I'm really another person. It's like, it's even more confusing than just having a new actor come in. Just have the new actor come in.
Yeah, especially when especially when they say they had plastic surgery. It's like, oh yeah, and they made you a foot taller. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that was a little yeah, they changed everything about him.
And isn't it interesting that, one of the common themes that we've been talking about are these whole paternity triangle things that have gotten everybody nominated. I think we said there's 3 different shows, or I think
4 soaps. All 4 soaps had one parent-child love triangle, and those encapsulate more than 4 actors, because there's 2 from The Young and the Restless had that storyline. 2 from Days of Our Lives submitted from that storyline. 1 from General Hospital, and 2 from The Bold and the Beautiful. So
yeah.
7 actors got nominated for parent-child love triangles.
And none of those are in these submissions at all.
Which is ironic. They probably should have. They might have a better shot at this.
They seem to be popular.
Inexplicably so.
Yeah, and to me that leaves Days of Our Lives, which submitted their first episode is basically where it's the climax of the necktie serial killer storyline from last year, where Kate Mansi as Abigail has escaped her serial killer boyfriend Ben, and he's lost complete touch with reality. But before he lost complete touch with reality, he hid their newborn baby somewhere. And so the majority of the episode is at the police station with her trying to break through to him to try and find out where he hid their baby. And then also in the same episode is when Hope has kidnapped Dr. Malcolm, Adam Ledbetter, from the guest acting category, and so those scenes fit prominently in this submission as well. In the second episode, it's the bicentennial it's the Salem bicentennial celebration, and it's the day that Hope is supposed to marry a man named Aiden. Actually, this episode aired before the first episode aired, but they paired them strangely. This is technically considered the second episode, even though it aired first. And it's Hope's wedding, and Peggy McKay's character is in the hospital, trying to convince people that Hope's ex-husband Bo has actually been calling her. Everybody thinks Peggy McKay is just suffering from Alzheimer's disease, and then the wedding happens, and Bo comes in too late to realize that Hope has married somebody else. And so that's their submission. And to me, the submission is they don't have any kind of real event happening. Most of the big spectacle moments happened in the episode before this, where Abby is kind of tied to a bed and that's been lit on fire, and she has to escape that. And this is a much more kind of like it's trying to kill her. And then the second episode, it just doesn't seem like there's a whole lot to it, certainly from what we saw in Peggy McKay's submission. So I don't see them necessarily winning. I maybe would probably put them in third maybe fourth. I think it's interchangeable with Young and the Restless. I just think this is really a GH versus Bold and the Beautiful race.
Yeah, and it can't hurt. It can't help Days of Our Lives that and they're not necessarily always these categories don't always connect because depending on who's voting in each category. But the fact that it's the only soap that missed out on a writing nomination, all four are nominated for directing, all four are nominated for drama. 3 out of the 4 are nominated for best writing team, and Days of Our Lives just happened to be the odd man out there. So. That probably doesn't bode well. I mean, and it's interesting. The fact that we're talking about Days of Our Lives anyway as the defending champ in a tie last year with Y&R, for years and years and years, this show could not get respect. Basically between the James E. Riley tenure in the '90s and the late aughts, the 2000s, the first decade of this century, they just hardly get any drama series nominations, scant acting nominations, if any. I think they won their, a few years ago, they won their first acting award in any category in the first time in 15 years. And now they've been winning more consistently. So and they've been nominated more consistently. Of course, there's less competition. There are fewer soaps on the air. They had to wait for other soaps to die. But I think there's also, a sense of resurgence that show has had, at least in the last, 5 or 6 years, certainly, as it has survived all these other shows that have fallen, and it has held on in terms of not just staying on the air, but it's holding on in terms of quality. It's won our Goldie Awards in our forums, our message boards. It has won, I believe, the last 3 in a row for best drama series. So we like it over.
And here's an interesting thing I was just looking up about Days of Our Lives is that Days of Our Lives has only in the entire history of the Daytime Emmys has only writings. It in the early 70s, I think the 3rd year, and then didn't win again until 2012. And if there's a case we made, and it's certainly not been consistently nominated. In fact, for most of the 2000s, it wasn't nominated for writing at all. And so this year, again, it's not nominated for writing.
So that's the 4 soaps. We've said less about those than we said about the acting categories, where we had to where we watched all the reels, and we enjoyed many of them and didn't enjoy some others. But is there anything in particular that you're hoping for from these Daytime Emmys? I know they're not being telecast, which I actually think might be a blessing in disguise, because them trying to claw onto a network every year just always felt a little bit undignified sometimes, and the way.
And what's funny is that the Daytime Emmys the last few years have been. It's almost kind of my favorite award show to watch, only because it's always such a train wreck. I remember the one year, I think it was 3 or 4, literally played the exact same music every time somebody won. They didn't play theme songs from anything. They just played this kind of cheesy music that even people there were like, oh, that's really nice music. There was the one year when Chandler Massey won after he had left the show, and when they were reading the nominees, they played they didn't even play scenes with Chandler Massey. They played Guy Wilson's scenes, who had taken over the part, and Chandler Massey was like, hey, did you see my reel? Those moments are just so wonderful. And so I'm always looking forward to seeing what happens. As far as winners, I'm so excited for lead actress, where 3 people could conceivably win, and I would be happy for any of them, because I cannot make up my mind. I cannot favor one over the other. I mean, I have my personal preference, but it's like picking between your children. You would be happy either way. So I'm just interested to see if Gary wins his 9th. That'll be interesting. It's going to be Sunday is going to be really fun.
Yeah,
do we know where they're streaming them?
I don't know if they're streaming them actually, because I just know that they're not telecasting them. So I'll have to look into that. But actually, that was my favorite recent Daytime Emmy ceremony. Was the year they streamed with Kathy Griffin hosting, and the fact that it felt so independent. They had Kathy Griffin on. They're streaming it online, so she cussed a bit, and it wasn't a big deal. And it felt so. It felt streamlined. It was like less than 2 hours. They got everything done. They even rushed it a little bit. They didn't need to go. They didn't need to rush. You're on internet time. You can just run on and on if you like. But yeah, that one was my favorite year in recent years. I really didn't like the HLN years. Those telecasts felt a little bit kind of underproduced. And then the couple of years that they were still on CBS, where they had to sell their souls to the Las Vegas Tourism Board, where they had like the Blue Man Group and Vanessa Williams performing apropos of nothing. And it was just so kind of uncomfortable. So I really am glad they're not being on TV this year. I hope they're streaming. If they're not streaming, I think they should do that again next year, because that's a really good way to stay relevant, stay on top of things, and be independent, and be able to do it your way, and honor the soaps and the talk shows, and just put the programming, just put that front and center, instead of having to worry about serving two masters, the Daytime Emmys and whatever network you're trying to shill for in that particular event.
And remember the year of I don't know if it was the HLN years, but it was the year that they had the couch just sitting right off stage with like these awkward interviews afterwards, and then that the girl from I want to say she's from Good Morning America like sang this song, and you could like cut to people in the audience and they're just like, what is this? That's just the moments we live for. To see. I live for those moments. I'm like, oh yes, but
do you remember the alligator?
Yes. Oh, the alligator.
It almost ate an Emmy. Those things are expensive. They make the winners pay for those.
Really?
Yeah, I've heard that the winners have to pay, like, shell out a couple $100s for a trophy or something.
Oh God, that's just fun. That's just fun.
I mean, if I won, I'd pay it. But yeah.
Oh, I'd pay it too. But I'm a public school teacher. I don't have hundreds of dollars laying around. No, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens, and who knows, maybe we'll get some inexplicable winners, and maybe some ties.
The Daytime Emmys, yeah.
So ties, three-way ties are always good.
Not always.
Well, not always, but I mean, it's good to get our blood going.
It would be really interesting from just a completely shameless tabloidy kind of curiosity is if Michael Strahan and Kelly Ripa win Best Talk Show Host again.
Oh, I'm hoping. Oh God, please let that happen. They never go, so.
That's true. Yeah.
They stopped going years ago. Even after they started winning, they stopped going.
But yeah, which is funny because I mean, last year they won, and they're sort of the big fish in the little pond now that now Ellen DeGeneres doesn't submit in that category anymore, Best Talk Show Host, and they split it off into talk show categories or talk show host categories and talk show categories. So half of their competition is elsewhere. So yeah, I mean, of all times to attend, this would be it now that they're sort of on top. But this year, yeah, even if they were planning to attend before, I might imagine they'd skip it this year.
You know what I would love to see? I would love to see because I know Craig Ferguson's nominated for game show host. Especially the fact that they're streaming it and it's not televised. I would just love to see what he would do for that amount of time.
I was overjoyed when he won game show host, just because I was such a huge fan of him on the Late Late Show.
I was too.
Yeah, he got one nomination for that one when they had the variety performance category, which they soon thereafter got rid of, and he was never nominated again. And I didn't even start watching the show until I think I started watching it at some point during the late night wars between Leno and Conan, when that was all in flux. So I decided to try out what was on CBS for a while, and I was hooked for all, for his last 5 years, I think it was.
Yep.
And he never was nominated during that time. Neither was his robot skeleton sidekick, who was amazing.
Josh Robert Thompson.
Yep. Oh, I would have given him an Emmy nomination for voiceover performance for that. That was genius what he did every night on that show.
And I think for my money, Craig Ferguson was the best interviewer in late night, and I want to see him do more.
Yeah.
But hey, the fact that he's getting Emmys now, it's great.
Yeah, he's officially an Emmy winner, and Daytime Emmys count no matter what what anyone tries to tell you. They're shaped the same. They're the same size.
Oh, and the other category that we have to be, I'm really looking forward to is the what's the official title? The performance on a daytime.
Oh yes, best musical, either best musical performance or best musical guest in a talk show or morning show.
Yeah. Otherwise known as How Do We Get Adele an Emmy? Of course, now watch her lose.
Exactly. We talked about this, I believe, on another slugfest or after another slugfest, that they created this category. It seemed almost like, this is the, we'll have Adele on our nominees list, and that will be a headline, and we'll be, we'll get some publicity for the show, which is ironic because they're not televising when they could have given Adele an Emmy. But that just seems like the sort of thing where they create this category to nominate Adele, and she might just not win. And it's certainly possible. I mean, these are based on very brief, performances. They're singing one song. Performance Adele's nominated for isn't actually one of her big singles from this current album. So for all we know, that that might hurt her, but she is still Adele. So
she's Adele. Does anything hurt her?
Yeah, it seems like at this point she's in that sweet spot. Like there's some people in show business who just when they like you, everyone likes you in every field that you try and compete in. So, right now it's Adele and Bryan Cranston, who no matter what they do, they get nominated for it. So if Adele wants to get that Tony, it's hers for the taking. And she doesn't even have to be in a show. She could just write, the score.
Yeah, pull a Cyndi Lauper.
Or pull a Whoopi Goldberg and produce something. They could do a Broadway sort of a jukebox musical version of The Breakup, and it'll be the 21 album, except it will be a Broadway musical, and she could win as a producer of that show.
Take notes, Adele. We want a cut.
but the strike while the iron is hot. They will give you awards for anything because you are so beloved in this industry right now. Bryan Cranston, that means you should cut an album immediately. So once you get in that hot streak, that's really, really a great thing for your career. You can really start racking them up.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing that will make on a more kind of serious note, in terms of what makes the Daytime Emmys, I still think unique among all award shows, is that maybe I'm old-fashioned, but it's nice to go back to the episodes really matter, the submissions matter, and it'll be interesting to see that after the Emmys changed, after the primetime Emmys changed their system, and there's certainly been some controversy about that, to really see how voters respond to these episodes, and going back to the original range, sympathy, impact, and see what they respond to, big performances, little performances. The Daytime Emmys is always a good place to go back to, and even though there are some WTF moments and head scratchers, for the most part, this is where we get to exercise those muscles that maybe we don't get to use very often.
Yeah, I'm a little bit hopeful still for the primetime Emmys. I mean, last year was not a good sign in terms of what the episode submissions mean. Like, they went exactly how a popular vote would go, and a lot of those episodes really clearly didn't seem to matter. But that was just 1 year, so we'll see what happens in year 2, if there are any tweaks to the voting process. I would love to see a system where they, you can watch them online, but maybe you have to watch a certain amount of it online, and they'll track you online while you're watching it. So, if you've seen a certain amount, you can click the skip button or something, and then they'll register that you'd seen it, enough of it, and then you can vote afterwards, but not until you've at least sampled everything.
Right.
So, but that would be a good way to do it. But for these Emmys, I'm not hugely emotionally invested in a lot of the winners. We talked about Craig Ferguson. I'd love to see him win again, but he's already won, so that's I wouldn't be certainly sad to see that go to someone else. The only one that I would really just make me happy to my core is Cassie DePaiva. As a longtime One Life to Live fan who watched that show get the shaft everywhere it turned, it couldn't get arrested. It got a lot of nominations for drama series and a few nominations for acting every year, but it hardly ever won, except for Erica Slezak, who won 6 times for Best Actress. So, I want Cassie DePaiva, after putting in all that work as Blair Kramer, which she should have won at least 1 Emmy for. I'd love to see her just get her due now, at least. It's a little late, but it's better late than never.
Yeah, the two that I think would make me jump up and down is Melissa Reeves in supporting actress. Even though I'm predicting Jessica Collins, I just loved what she submitted, and the fact that she's been on that show for so long and is really and this is only her 2nd nomination. The fact that she has that she gives the kind of performance that soaps are just made of, and I would love to see her win. And really, Cassie DePaiva or Finola Hughes would make me happy. I have a soft spot for Finola Hughes because I've been watching GH since I was a toddler, and she is such a consistent great actress, and she's been nominated so many times that she hasn't won in 25 years. And the fact that no actress has ever won lead from GH more than once, I would love to see that. But again, Cassie, I cannot argue with anything about Cassie DePaiva because she is spectacular. And like I said, that lead actress category is just going to be one to watch. That's the one I am probably the most excited to see what happens.
Yeah, supporting actress, I'm not quite as excited about the outcome, but I'm excited because I think that's one of the toughest ones. I can't think of a single winner in that category who would totally surprise me. But the good news is I can't think of a single nominee in that category who would be undeserving, like totally undeserving. Like I could make a case in terms of the quality of the submissions for any of those 5 women. I could do the same for the 5 women for younger actress for the most part, for even the Best Actress nominees, even though I think we are kind of solid on 3 out of the 5 of those as the strongest possibilities. The male category is not quite as consistent, but there's still a lot of good there. So, I mean, that's one thing I'm really excited about, is that this is a good year for Daytime Emmy submissions in terms of what actually made the cut. A couple of anomalies notwithstanding.
Yeah, and also, wouldn't it just be so much fun? And I know how you feel about Cassie DePaiva, but to me, the one that would shock me and yet leave me ecstatic is Tracy Bregman with her, barely 5 minutes, but boy, is it a good 5 minutes. And, so that would make me happy. I can't think of any, with a couple of nominees notwithstanding, but in terms of the front runners that we've been talking about over the last week or so, I can't fault any of the winners among the front runners in these categories, and that's a nice problem to have.
And the best thing for me about the Daytime Emmy season is that it gets me back a little bit into soaps. I watched soaps from starting in the mid to late 90s. I really started with GH in the late 90s, and then started picking up other ABC soaps, and then I branched out into NBC and then CBS, and so I started picking them up, and then they started getting canceled gradually. So now it's easier than ever to keep up with soaps, because I can literally watch a piece of one every day instead of having to pick and choose between 4 or 5 shows that were, airing opposite each other or against each other. So now I could watch, The Young and the Restless, switch over at 1 o'clock to Days of Our Lives, at 1:30, I could see what's going on in The Bold and the Beautiful, wait an hour, and then GH at 3. So I could, I can at least get a sampling of what's going on in the industry.
I know.
Which is fun.
I'm wondering if in future years, because you're starting to see an increased presence from digital series, and I'd be interested to see how those categories are received, and if they expand as digital series start to make more of a statement. It's interesting how that at the Daytime Emmys, a digital series has its own category, but yet, kind of like in the primetime Emmys, a Netflix series is still considered a television series, even though it's a digital. So, it's interesting to see how digital moving in is going to change the landscape of both the daytime and the primetime Emmys.
I think digital is going to become a big part of the future of soap operas, as it already has, is because a lot of these, just in terms of how they're produced and how they air, they're not as viable. Like a 5-day-a-week drama series, hour-long drama series, it's not as viable a production model as it used to be. Whereas web shorts, short episodes, a few episodes at a time, low budget, just sort of a kind of a handmade kind of quality to it, but not in a derogatory way, but in a modest kind of production way. I think that's a really, really great way to keep soaps alive, and I think the Prospect Park experiment with All My Children and One Life to Live was a noble experiment. It sort of went off the rails in terms of the behind-the-scenes drama, but I hope that's the first kind of misstep on what is maybe a viable future path for soaps.
And when you look at the talent that digital series are attracting, you've got a lot of past Emmy nominees and winners. You got Martha Byrne, Elizabeth Hubbard, Mary Beth Evans. You got Van Hansis, and you just start seeing a lot of these familiar faces, and it's nice to see them still having this outlet and still getting recognized for it.
Yeah. So I think on that note, we will call that a night on our drama series discussion and our Daytime Emmy discussion as a whole. It has been a pleasure discussing these with you. I definitely would love to do this again. Certainly next year when we get the pre-nominations and we can start talking about those. And actually, after the Daytime Emmys, I would love to reconvene with you so we can kind of lick our wounds. I'm sure there will be some weirdness that happens that we're not expecting. I can just, like, one of those people that we're just like, okay, any of these people has a chance. This one person not gonna win, and they win every category. I can just smell it.
We'll call that the Fred Willard Award.
No, actually, Thorsten Kaye will end up winning every category on a write-in.
God. Oh, that's a good place to end it.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Tony, for taking part in these, and thank you, viewers, for putting up with us while we blather on, watching us on your screens or listening to us in your ears, however you are consuming this. And we will see if we are right on Sunday. We will see if you, our viewers or listeners, are right. If you are predicting the Daytime Emmys, we will reconvene afterwards. Have a good night.